Okay, so we are on day 2 of Mishlei 1429. Erech Apayim Rav Tavuna Uksar Ruach Merimi Veles. So plain shot, there's no plain shot. Straight translation is slowness to anger, and then you got to fill in the blank here, blank Rav Tavuna. So the possibilities we have here is that slowness to anger is great understanding, or shows great understanding, or causes great understanding. I'm going to say great understanding instead of much. Uksar ruach, but shortness of spirit, or shortness of breath, or let's just say short-temperedness. Okay, literally shortness of spirit, shortness of breath. Merim elevates or selects foolishness. Okay, then we had our other translations. Our scroll says slowness to anger shows much understanding, but a short-spirited person elevates foolishness. Rav Hirsch says he who is patient gains insight, but one who is impatient acquires folly as his portion, from the lesson of Truma. Alters as patience means great discernment, but impatience multiplies folly. And he got the multiplies from the there are the Targum and Sadigon and the Septuagint all say that it is Merim is like Marbe, or that's what it means. It means to like increase. And then Isaac's rhyming translation is much understanding for one who's slow to get mad, and foolishness is elevated by a short-tempered lad. Okay, I like that. All right, so our questions were, what scenario is this describing, if any specific scenario? 2, what is the subject? Is it understanding of foolishness, or is it the speed of anger, or some combo? 3, what is Erech Apayim? And we mentioned that there are 2 basic just shot meanings. Is it slow to get angry, or slow to act on anger? 4, Erech Apayim is a lower level than not getting angry at all. How do we get this seemingly great benefit from a mediocre mina? So that's not the best formulated question, but basically like you would think that the ideal would be no anger at all, and this is like advertising slowness to anger as like this great benefit. 5, what is tavuna? Tavuna of what? Why specifically tavuna as opposed to any other knowledge category? 6, how does Rav qualify tavuna? 7, what is the relationship between Erech Apayim and Rav tavuna? How does that work? Is it bidirectional, meaning it's a symbiotic relationship, each one contributes to the other, or is it unidirectional? And if the latter, what direction? We said that shot-wise, it seems like the slowness to anger results in Rav tavuna, not the other way around, but still a question. 8, what is Ktsar Ruach? 9, what does it mean to be Merimi Veles? 10, Ktsar Ruach would seem to be a type of foolishness in itself. So what does it mean that it raises or elevates foolishness as opposed to just being foolishness? 11, what is the relationship between the 2 halves? How are Tavuna and Veles opposites? 12, is this describing a personality type or a personality trait? Or is this even a single instance then this occurs? And 13, practically speaking, how do we implement this? Okay, so we had a couple approaches yesterday that were overlapping. We had okay, now I don't remember. My mind is scrambled in terms of the various approaches to Ariel's thing. But one we talked about had to do with perception, which is that let's say you are right and you actually do have great understanding. If you speak angrily or act angrily, then you will not be perceived as having great understanding. So it's not going to help you in your communications. Whereas sorry, I said it the wrong way. If you act or speak in a short-tempered way, you're going to appear foolish. But if you don't react angrily, then your Rav understanding will be manifest. So that's one way. And I think that fits in actually well with the Merim Ivela. It actually doesn't fit well with that. Never mind. Yeah, David?
I think I was specifically making the point of passion and anger can be
Correct.
in that regard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and we etymologically supported that with the fact that passionate used to mean angry. Right. Yeah, people can mistake passion for anger. Right. And I think in that sense, I think Tsar Ruach does fit in really well because Ruach does refer to all your emotions typically. So the fact that it doesn't say, I don't know if there is a corresponding thing for like Tsar Af. I'm not sure, but it does work out that like short-tempered being like you let your passions get hold of you a lot. Yeah. Okay. David's idea was that if you allow yourself to get angry, so internally, it's going to distort your objectivity because you'll relate to everything in terms of the self and how in line with the self things are, and that's going to cause you to think, speak, and act foolishly from this limited perspective. But if you implement strategies to prevent yourself from getting immediately angry, that will give you a certain objectivity, which will allow for in-depth analysis. So in other words, slowness to anger allows for great understanding because it gives you that distance from the subject matter, whereas short-temperedness warps things. And we went into rayas from Chazal about how anger is the only midah where they specify that it causes, the Metzudas David says this, that it causes your chachma to depart, and they compare it to avodah zarah because you're distorting things. Basically, anger is when you feel like raging will change reality, and you're reacting to a self-centered view of reality where this should have been in line with my desires or with me. And so that's unique to anger, or at least it's heightened with anger. And then Sean had an idea, which I think was a good idea, but didn't fit as smoothly into the words. Great understanding constitutes slowness to anger, but shortness of mind, meaning if you're not in the framework of objective understanding, increases foolishness. The more you endeavor to retain objectivity, the less prone you will be to falling into the subjective world of anger, and vice versa. And the only thing that I didn't like about that in terms of reading is that what didn't I like about it is that great understanding constitutes slowness to anger. No, maybe I like it today. I don't know. Yeah, Isaac.
I have another approach.
Sure.
So I'll start with the second half.
Okay.
Someone who's short-tempered, even if otherwise they typically, are chacham or navon. If they're short-tempered, when you point out their foolishness, they're gonna like if you say, "Oh, the thing that you're explaining doesn't make sense because X, Y, Z,"
Yeah.
then they're gonna get angry and double down on it.
Mhm.
And the more, it's almost like the more foolish the more foolish that their plan was, the more they're gonna be embarrassed, and then that's gonna turn to anger, and then the more they're gonna double down on their foolishness. That's like it elevates foolishness because because you're pointing out, let's say, why it's foolish,
Right.
That's gonna cause them to double down and like elevate.
Okay, so is there something in the pasuk that's pointing you to the scenario of like rebuking or calling someone out for their foolishness? Because like I'm not seeing I'm not disputing what you're saying, but like this seems to be talking about like general tendencies as opposed to like when the Qatar Ruach is like spotlighted.
Yeah, so I feel like
or the foolishness is spotlighted, yeah.
Yeah, so I think to me, like elevating foolishness seems like it's one possible explanation of it is like that where the person's in a scenario of choosing choosing between foolishness and not foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also another party because there's anger.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean rebuke is maybe one instance of that. I think there could be other instances, but there has to be a second party and also some sort of choice. So
okay, yeah, I hear it. It feels too narrow for me, but yeah, David.
I just want to say the
Sure.
first half.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So the first half is someone who is slow to anger, then they're gonna be able to avoid this pitfall where when they see gaps in their thinking, they're not gonna be upset about it because they are slow to anger, and so then you can actually get understanding.
Right. Okay. I like the reality, if not the shot. Yeah, David.
To Isaac is saying, I thought it was an interesting point you were saying of that there is another party there that is the anger is being channeled toward. And I think maybe not necessarily even like an extra party of a person, but I think that causing just reality and just like the physical world,
right,
is what the person can get mad at. Like say like if a person like they tried to like, I don't know, toss something into a bucket and like they missed and then like it exploded, like whatever, put something else and something else broke now.
Yeah.
And they get like furious at it.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't like not a person that was say giving that rebuke, if you may.
Yeah.
It was like the physical world
right.
like giving that rebuke.
Yeah.
As far as that, maybe Isaac was saying of like what the other party is, the rebuke is not coming from a person per se as much as anything external to them that's not what they're
that I like. Right. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So anger does, I think because you're taking everything personally when you get angry, you personify reality, that it's doing this to me. And then you could have this ego reaction. Yeah, that I'm definitely more open to. Yeah.
Myself, because I used to that would happen to be funny where I'd get like very mad at like the laws of physics.
Yeah.
And then the more I learned about the laws of physics, the less angry I get about it.
Yeah.
I think to myself that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. There's nothing we got. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I remember about that point about goods and there needs to be a part of you really angry at.
Yeah.
And there was one time when I was I didn't mention this in mentioned even or in the previous year. I was like moving the washer to the dryer, and the dryer was sort of close to hit me in the side of the head.
Yeah.
And like it really hurt.
Yeah.
And I felt myself getting angry, and I was like, am I angry at like Aviva because she asked me to do this? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like angry at.
Yeah, but you search for a guilty party.
Yeah, I was like feeling angry, and I was like, there's not even a party that I'm feeling angry
Right.
at.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just really quickly review the Metzudas David, and then I want to do this Rabbeinu Yonah. So Metzudas David that we read yesterday at the bottom says, "Mi she'eno memaher lichos," someone who's not quick to get angry. So again, I don't know if that means acting in anger or feeling angry. Hu Rav Tvuna, he is great in understanding. V'al-katzar ruach hamemaher lichos. And again, I also don't know if memaher means that he is quick or he quickens himself to get angry, you know, like there is a certain feeling. I think someone mentioned this yesterday, like that you are like, there is a, what do you call it? There's a satisfaction in leaning into the anger because you feel vindicated and it affirms your being wronged. So that might be the min maher lichos, like, you know, you just, like there are cases where if, let's say like in David's case or Isaac's case about if someone points out to you that there is no guilty party, you feel resentment that there's no one you can get angry at, you know, so you want to blame someone.
There has to be a fall guy.
Yeah. So I'm not sure which one he's saying. Who merim ha'ivelas al hatvuna. So he is elevating foolishness over understanding. He alide hakas, because via anger hachachma mistalekas, chachma departs. Ubocher hu im kein ba'ivelas. He's choosing foolishness, yoser min chachma, over chachma. So what I want to make sure I understand here, he's really putting the emphasis on the second half of the pasuk, that he's choosing ivelas over chachma. Ezra, I might have given you the wrong packet.
No,
Okay, fine. All right, yeah, because the packets got shuffled. So
maybe I'm a little confused.
Shin Pei Aleph is the page. It's at the bottom. Yeah. Right. So what I guess my question is, what is the nuance here that he's saying in that second half? He's choosing Ivelis over Chachma. What I said yesterday was that the pasuk is highlighting that you're making a choice here, and no one would willfully choose foolishness, you know. So by framing this as by equating quickness to anger as choosing foolishness over chachma, that might be just a strategy of like getting you to stop in your tracks. But I don't know if he's saying another idea. Yeah.
No, I think that the inability to accept one's being wrong is the inhibitor of progression in knowledge. I think there's somebody from that. But like when the person says, like when the person is looking to get mad at something to vindicate themselves,
Yeah.
but instead of just like recognizing like the laws of the physical laws, instead of like just saying I'm wrong here and I'm making a mistake, the fact they're not to say they're making a mistake prevents them from just actually seeing how things are in truth. And
Right.
I think it's like generally saying when you're in an argument or anything of that sort. I think here just as well.
Okay, so I'm missing. So what's the Bechira emphasis?
So that, I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit toward the yesterday, that there is like that little snap moment where
Right.
you're able to, anytime that anything happens,
Right.
there's like a little bit of snap when they're able to decide how you interpret that which has happened external to you.
Okay, let me this is not necessarily going to go against what you're saying, but like really any pasuk in Mishlei, there is a moment like this where you can choose to react or not.
Yeah.
But according to the Metzudas David, the pasuk itself is highlighting that you're marrying mivelis, you're choosing foolishness. You know, so why, like, to put it in a blunt way, why can't we tack on the phrase marrying mivelis to any pasuk about a fool?
Yeah.
You know,
Can you put 6 on Mrs. over one time?
so he's saying that So the first half of the Metzudas David sounds like what we've been saying, which is that if you're quick to get angry, if you're not quick to get angry, then that is being in a position of great understanding. I don't know what that means. And if you are quick to get angry, then you're basically like choosing foolishness over understanding, because your chachma is going away. Okay, but then the point he's making though is ubocher hu im kain be'ivelas. If so, you're choosing foolishness, yoser min chachma, more than chachma. And that's where the emphasis is in his idea. We were putting the emphasis on just like, erech apayim is more advantageous than short-temperedness. But he's putting the whole emphasis on meri mivelas. You're choosing foolishness. And I just want to know why emphasize that. Especially if you could say that for any mishlei pasuk. You're choosing foolishness.
Because
Yeah.
I think with other things, I think that it's usually a specific foolishness that is
Okay.
being highlighted. Here, you're categorically choosing to not be using chachma.
Right. Okay. I think that's the idea. Right. Yeah. In other words, anytime you give into an emotion, this kind of relates to what we said yesterday about the difference between anger and other stuff. Anytime you give into an emotion, you're distorting things. So let's say, for example, I find when we're talking about hilchos deos, then the easiest example to use always is spendthrift and saving and frugal. So like let's say you are a spendthrift and you just got your paycheck and like you walk past. I'm thinking about going to the planning to go to the airport today. So like they always have those giant vending machines with all of the expensive like electronic equipment, and I was like, do I need like new earbuds or whatever? I've never used one of those things before, but so like what happens is let's say if you really want the thing, the emotion warps your perspective of like, yeah, I need this, or like the money doesn't really matter, or the money will come to me some other way, So it is a warping of the emotions. But here what you're doing is you are categorically making a decision to turn off your critical thinking. Like it would be like lahavdil, like if a doctor is about to go into surgery and then say like, oh, I'm just going to take hallucinogens, like it's a deliberate choice to put yourself into a mindset where you can't like correctly perceive what's going on in reality, so it's true. So in other words, any emotional decision, you are making a foolish choice. Here you're choosing foolishness. Yeah.
Okay, just to further this idea.
Yeah.
At what point would you say that he's choosing this? In the
Right.
going back to the conversation yesterday,
Yeah.
because depending on when that point is, I may have an argument.
Right. So I do think the point you made yesterday is true, which is that the real time to handle this is in advance.
Yes.
Prepare yourself in advance, because it's very hard to pull out of it in the moment. But there still is an opportunity. There's just to talk about what David just referenced.
I also have a rye after this. When you finish.
Yeah. This is the famous Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom, right? So that's like that space that something happens and you can, and you're like, you feel the part of you that wants to rage. And then you feel the part of you that says, no, if I don't give into this, if I give into this, I'm throwing my chachma out the window. If I don't give into this, I might still feel the seething anger, but I can try to maintain distance. And then that decision itself will give you some mastery, So I think there still is and then I think there is sometimes, even if you start giving into your anger, sometimes you can still pull out by like pulling an פירוש and like leaving the room and walking in the garden, so like but those are the three the 3 points.
Right.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm asking this is, well, I guess if there is a space, then it makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm saying you have to like seize the space. You have to like as the elevator doors are closing, you have to like pry it open and pry the doors
But
open.
you also have to see the space.
Yes, you have to see the space.
Right.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
the question, okay, fine.
And that's what the pasuk is highlighting. Like, there's that space there. Yeah.
Right. So okay, fine. So the reason why I'm asking this is because I remember learning with Rav Pesach that that has to do with like bringing korbanos for karbachatas or whatever.
Yeah.
So like if you do a chait, let's say you let's say I don't know, here's an extreme example. Let's say you're, I don't know, you can't control yourself, sleeping with one or whatever.
Okay.
And once you're in that situation, like the temptation is very difficult.
Right.
And you can't control yourself at the
Right.
moment, right? But so the question is, where would you do the teshuva process on? Is on putting yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
Right. So the question is, if you have to do teshuva on putting yourself in that situation, is it way before
Right.
than the actual moment you're doing the page?
Right. Yeah. So to answer your question, I don't think the pasuk is telling you when to implement this. The pasuk is telling you about the phenomenon that anger screws up your objectivity, and there are these 3 points, and you'd be better off planning far in advance. Like let's take a relatable example for teachers. Like if you are teaching certain kids with certain behavior issues, before you go into the classroom that they're going to misbehave.
Yeah.
So like if you can prepare yourself mentally in advance, like the strategies that I mentioned about like recognizing that 10th grade boys are animals, then you can work on it in advance. But if you don't do that, then there still is an opportunity to catch yourself when
I see. So it's not really, it's not the person's not talking about
when to do this. It's just pointing out the phenomenon so you're aware of it, and then you can use whatever. There's lots of,
whenever it is, there is a moment in time where you can.
right, and there's a whole suite of anger management strategies that you can use here, but this is pointing out the phenomenon, and it's also pointing out the way to frame it, which is I'm choosing foolishness. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the reason why it's highlighting you're choosing. I think part of the reason why it's highlighting you're choosing foolishness.
Yeah.
Is because I think with character tendencies and character traits, there is a feeling of like, oh, it's just like this is just how I am.
Yeah.
I'm whatever
Yeah.
my traits. So it's highlighting if you're short-tempered, it's a choice. And
Yeah.
the choice that you're choosing is foolish.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's do this Rabbeinu Yonah, which I remember being good, but I haven't reread. Okay, Rabbeinu Yonah starts off on our page.
And your ideas from Rabbeinu Yonah?
I think it is, yeah. Was it?
I feel like the way you were talking about it was the opposite of more of my odd essay, right?
Erech Hapaim Rav Tavuna. Misha Moshe Bakaso. Ve'ino nokin be'es chamaso ad shetisyashev dato v'yachshav kadas malasas. Okay, this is the first Rabbeinu Yonah where I encountered his idea about like Mishlei telling you to take delayed revenge, right? So someone who rules his anger and does not take revenge at the time of his wrath until his mind is settled and he can think what is the proper thing to do. Min hamida hazos magia lios rav tavuna. From that mida, you will become great in understanding. Someone who is short-tempered will not be able to succeed in mechkar, in like analytical thinking. Because he will take biado in his hand, hamachshava rishona shetishpar alav. He'll take the first thought that seems beautiful to him. I think that's shetishpar like shifra, right? Shufra. He will not find in his heart the ability to be settled and to examine through all the various angles of analysis to see whether there is any aspect that contradicts his thought. To the point where he can arrive at a firm, weighed opinion. You can only find that quality in a patient person. Someone who is slow to anger, in reality, is someone who's patient. Okay, I'm going to read the whole thing because he gives like a little list here. Okay, and then we'll summarize each one. Furthermore, you should know, someone who's not wise, when something weighs upon him, when a thought arises in his mind and it's good in his eyes, but he hears his fellows objecting to him, it will be harsh in his eyes, and he will push away his friend's refutation in favor of his own words. And he will not be patient enough to see if the words of his friend are right and in order to admit to the truth. Hinem kisibas hatolada hamivia lamalas arichos paim hi hamivia lios haish rav tbuna. The tolada in Rabbeinu Yonah lingo means like in your like character traits. I think it refers though to like I'm always undecided about how he means tolada, because I feel like it has the connotation of like in nature and nurture. I feel like it has the connotation of nature, like your dispositions. So the disposition that brings you to the virtue of slowness to anger is the same virtue that brings you to become Rav Tavuna. So that's perk number 2.
Yeah, so this is more in line with what I was saying, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
O Teda, Ibal Tsar Ruach, furthermore, you should know that someone who's short-tempered, when he hears something that does not seem rational at first glance, lo yuchal lemaher iyun hatavuna al hadavar. He will not be able to hasten analysis in understanding that thing. And he will immediately decide to abandon it, to reject it. Ubal hatvuna, but someone who is a master of understanding, yazin, he will listen attentively ad tivunas divrei chavero, until he understands the words of his friend. Ad yachkor milin, until he can investigate his words. Upa'amim sheis kabel alav hadavar b'sofi, and sometimes he'll accept it by the end of his analysis. O Teda, you should also know, ki hakas v'kotzer haruach, that anger and short-temperedness yivalbulu hamachshava mihagia el imke hamechkar, that anger and short-temperedness will confound your thoughts and prevent you from reaching the depths of analysis. Same statement that we've read. V'tamid tikra'ena talaos hamachisos es ha'adam. That's interesting. Okay, I think this means, so tikrena here, I know he says this with an aleph, but I think it means like mikra, and talaos are like misfortunes. So there will always be misfortunes that anger a person. Olam rubo yigonos. The world is filled with sorrows. Lachain, therefore, yakor ha'adam sharashe ahavas tevel milavavo. Well, this correlates to our pasuk last night. Therefore, a person should uproot the love of the world from his heart, meaning with the love of like worldly things. Bal yihiu yigoneha uchrimoso, lest, wow, he's waxing poetic here, lest its sorrows sully him. V'lo misosa v'gila marbim simpaso. He switched into like poetry mode. Like the word choice also is like really like poetic. V'lo misosa v'gila marbim simpaso, and not let its joys and gladnesses increase his joy. Kishtei amidos ele lotis kayem ha'achas mibalade chaverta. These two midos will not last one without the other. I gotta read Rambam in a second. I'll read right now. Yeah, so I'm only going to use this because I'm more familiar with the topic one. So this is in the end of Maseches Brachos on the halacha that you should kashim shemavarchim al ha-tov kach mavarchim al ha-ra, and the Rambam says this is Brachos Tes Hey. So he says, Amru, Chazal say, Kashim Shuhu Mavarach al Hatova, just as a person blesses on the good, Ratzalomar, Shi Kablim Besimcha V'Yichbosh V'Yikshosa V'Yashiv Da'ato Kishim Mavarach Baruch Dain HaEmes, meaning that a person will accept the bad things that happen with simcha, and he will subdue his emotions and settle his mind when he makes the bracha Baruch Dain HaEmes, Ad Shira'eh Kamosh Bizman Shu Mavarach Hatov HaMeitiv, to the point where he appears the same as when he makes Hatov HaMeitiv. Okay, that's a very high level, all right? As the Chachamim say, in all of their matters, everything that heaven does is for the good. And this is something that is understood by the Nevonim, by those who understand, even though the Torah does not prohibit it. Many things seem bad at first, in the beginning, but at the end they bring great good. And many things seem good at the beginning, but at the end is bad. Mode, very bad. Sorry, hold on. Therefore, sorry, one second. Still getting over this cold. Therefore, Ein Roy Lanavon. Oh, here, this is the point. Ein Roy Lanavon lehitztar bevotzar gadola ugzera hara sakana. Therefore, it's not proper for the Navon to be afflicted or to feel pain when a great Sarah and a harsh decree of sakana happens. Okay, when Iran attacks, you shouldn't feel exceedingly distressed if you're a Navon. The fisha eno yodea hatachlis. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. I'm going to read the whole thing. V'gam al yispate v'yismach simcha rabba kishetagiehu tova lefi machshato. So too, you should not be seduced and rejoice with a great simcha when something good, according to your mind, befalls you. The fisha eno yodea hatachlis, because you don't know the end, right? Good, bad, it's hard to say. V'chein asru alei mashalim laharbus b'simcha v'sochok zulasi im haisa osa hasimcha b'davar hanala. So too, the Chachamim prohibited us. Okay, I don't think he means like halakhic prohibition. They prohibited us to be excessive in simcha and schok unless it's something, unless it's a simcha about something that is worthwhile. Kolomar asiyas hatov v'drishaso, meaning doing good and seeking it, meaning like simcha shel mitzvah. Aval ha'ashara mihadavon v'hatzar harehu mifursam me'od b'sifra neviim ad she'ein tzorech l'daber elav. But warning us against having anxiety or distress, that is well known in the books of the prophets to the point where we don't need to talk about it. And all of this is if the person is not is not steeped in the good from beginning to end, and a person thinks that he is like very happy. That imaginary happiness, that will cause him to be withheld from him the true happiness, and that will cause him to be driven out of Olam Haba. We just did that one, didn't we? Yeah, 14:12. Regarding this, the pasuk says there is a path that's straight before a man, and its end are ways of death. Therefore, person should orient his thoughts. A person should orient his thoughts and ask God that everything that befalls him in this world, whether good or bad, should be a cause for him to arrive at true happiness. Okay, that's a separate idea. So in other words, he's saying that's what the Rabbeinu Yonah is alluding to here, is that you can't be happy about worldly things without also putting yourself into a situation where you're going to be upset about worldly things. You can't have one without the other. Either you are invested in worldly things and you're going to fluctuate with the ups and downs of the world, or you're going to not put your value in worldly things and put your values in like what he's calling Osher Ha'amiti, the true happiness, or the world of ideas, or true Tov and Ra, and then you won't be affected by the ups and downs in the physical circumstances. You'll have like an even keel based on like what is actually good for you. Yeah, what are you gonna say?
I was just gonna say about when you're on. One of my first thoughts was, this is it's bad that Iran is attacking Israel, but also it could be very good in terms of, let's say, like it seems like there was a flood of like public support for Israel that have been like waning, you just don't know. Okay, so back to the Rabbeinu Yonah. So he's saying that that if you let me just read that last line again that prompted me to go to the Rambam. So he says you should not. I'm going to start from Tamid. The Tamid, I'll just read it in English. All things that anger a person will always happen, and the world is filled with sorrows. Therefore, a person should uproot from his heart the roots of love for this world, lest its sorrows sully him, and lest its joys increase his joy. Because these two midos, one cannot stand without the other. Neither can live while the other, or another can. What is the Harry Potter line? Neither can live while the other survives.
Yeah, neither can live while the other survives. Right. In other words, you can't have love of the world and joy from the world without also immersing yourself in its sorrows. And when you do this, because when you do this, then your heart will be free for investigation in the Chachma. Hine ki erech hapayim asher taher levavo. A person who is erech hapayim, who has purified his heart, mikatsof al hevle tevel. Well, that's a nice little pun. He's purified his heart from getting angry about the vanities of this world. Besumo panav lidrosh hachachma, by making by directing his face to seek chachma, yagiel hios rav tavuna. He will attain the level of being rav tavuna. Uksar ruach meri mivelas, but someone who is short-tempered will choose foolishness. Ktar ruach be'es kaso, when he gets angry, yiglu safasav es kol ha'ola al rucho. His lips will reveal whatever occurs to his emotions. Migodo leva v'gaiva ubuz. With his haughtiness and arrogance and scorn. But as long as he restrains his lips, as long as he restrains his lips from making known, from revealing his haughtiness and his arrogance and his willfulness, he will be lowering and subduing his bad nature, his bad instincts and his hateful thoughts. That's another rhyming pasuk in Mishlei. If you are cunning, you'll put your hand to your mouth. I've been cunning lest I transgress with my mouth. But when a person expresses expresses himself verbally and makes known mizimas libo, the thoughts of his heart, nimsa merim umachazik ha'ivelas hatmuna belibo. He will be elevating and strengthening the foolishness that is hidden in his heart. Ki b'shiluach piv aleha tachazik v'tishrash b'tivo. Because when he gives free rein to his mouth, it will strengthen and be rooted. The foolishness will be strengthened and rooted in his nature. Okay, so there's a lot of Rabbeinu Yonah. Let's just take a big picture snapshot for a second. What is his main point, and why do I like this one so much? What's the main point of the pasuk according to him? All his odes.
He just seems to be saying that like whenever you engage in anger, it'll limit your thinking.
Right. Yeah, that's his main point, right? All the ways that engaging in anger limits your thinking, but the reason why, yeah.
Well, it sounds like not necessarily only anger, but anytime it's going to be anything that has like physical world types of fluctuations.
Oh yeah, correct. Right. So he broadens this with three areas, right? So he starts off talking about quickness to anger, then he goes into the fact that the world can provoke reactions from you and reacting to worldly things, and then with Katar Ruach, he's really talking about inner reactivity. You notice he doesn't emphasize the anger in the Katar Ruach stuff. He starts off saying the Be'ez Kaso, but he's really talking about just people who say and whatever they're thinking or feeling, you know? So the reason why I like this so much is because, you know, we give a lot of lip service to the fact that, you know, perfection of midos has to come before perfection of chachma, you know? And I feel like there are people who just give lip service to that, but they don't actually like think that it's true. Like they think you could become like a thinker without working on mishlei, you know? And this is a perfect example where working on your anger in interpersonal like reactions, or in terms of like how you react to like missing the thing when you throw it into the wastebasket and like, you know, knocking stuff over or whatever, working on that directly affects your ability to think objectively and to like, you know, let's just list the benefits you mentioned, right? Number one was someone who's quick to anger will not be able to examine every angle of something. He'll just take the first thing that looks good to him. Two is that he will not be able to hear what other people are saying because he'll just seize onto his own opinion. He won't be able to like get into the other person's framework to see it. Three is he will be quick to cease his analysis. He won't prolong his analysis. He'll be impatient about the analytical process itself. And four is when he goes into the whole thing about he'll let the what do you call it? The fluctuations of the hedonic treadmill, take him on all these ups and downs and not be able to have a clear, undisturbed mind to be able to like engage in long-term analysis. So like these things will directly affect your ability to think. Yeah. That's the Rabbeinu Yonah.
So what was your idea?
That is my idea.
Oh, you're okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I just remember this Rabbeinu Yonah very well. I just didn't remember what the order of his points were. I just remember he was like, he had a list of like all the benefits and all the perks of thing. So really, this is in terms of what we said yesterday. This is this is very close to what this is what David was talking about, but just more expanded, and also what Sean was talking about. In terms of like the subject of the pasuk is the relationship, is how working on your slowness and quickness to anger contributes to your ability to like be intellectually perfected. Yeah.
I think there's also interesting that like in this framework altogether that there are the two sides to it and how you're talking about the two sides to it. I think that like say within like I think that like that versus say like action thinking, that there is kind of like you could be on one side operating one framework and it doesn't make you fall into the other framework. Like thing with Chokhmah does not make you fall into the other.
Yeah.
But something the other thing is talking about that there are like necessary two sides, particularly on the left column there. Talking about like different things of the like what you call the hedonic treadmill.
Yeah.
Interesting thing is also interesting that there a lot of these things do exist in both the positive and the negative. And just keeping in mind, like even I know that's not the point of the pasuk itself or necessarily what Rabbeinu Yonah was saying. But that is just something to keep in mind when you are going to step into it, that you're going to have to be taking both the positive and the negative. Right.
So just to elaborate on that, because we did talk about it last night, is this is pointing to this is the escalator that leads you up out of Mishlei, okay, which is that Mishlei on the ground level does advocate pursuing physical pleasures and pleasures of worldly pleasures, because that's what you're motivated to pursue, right? But Mishlei ultimately, a person who follows that program will ultimately realize that as long as I'm attached to physical worldly pleasures, I am going to be enslaved to them to a certain extent. And so, whereas if I make the main source of my happiness the pleasures of the mind and knowledge, that's a more fixed source of pleasure, and he'll eventually not want to invest himself in like just pursuing these physical pleasures. But that's like what Koheleth points to, and that's ultimately going to be shiur. That's on the third floor. One more point I was going to make also about this last part, and again, I know I brought this up last night, but just I gotta tie it to Pesach. This Ritva who quotes the Yerushalmi version of the Arba Banim. I think it's just another good example of what we're just talking about here. So in the Arba Banim, so our Rasha says Rasha Mahu Omer Maha Avodazos Lachem, and that's all he says. Okay, what is the service to you? But the Yerushalmi, Peirush Yerushalmi, Maha Toreach she'atem matrichim alinu b'chol shana v'shana la'akif es sudasenu ula'akif simchas hachag. I think my girsa in the Torah time says ula arbev. Yeah, ula arbev. I like that better. So what is this? So he says, what is this burden that you burden us with each and every year to delay our meal and mess up the simcha of the chag? Okay, so ki Rasha begova apo balt yidrosh. A Rasha in his haughty anger will not inquire. Okay, so think about a Seder where there are great ideas being discussed, but because this Rasha is so impatient because he wants to get to the meal, he just can't even hear what's going on in the discussion. So like that impatience. Whereas let's say he really does like food, but like not have let's say he's able to have erech apayim, in terms of like not getting what he wants right now. That itself could give him the ability to like, okay, I'll eat in an hour. Like, that could give him the ability to like benefit from the discussion that's going on. But he can't even see that. He's just like in the groups of his taiva, Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good stopping point. I don't want to start a new thing because I gotta go now. But all right, so Bli Neder will pick up
Before you
Yeah.
exit the Torah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to, figure out the B2B thing on here. Can you just show me like
The B2B?
yeah, B2B thing? You mentioned like dictionary. Yeah.
Oh, BDB.
Oh, BDB.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
Sorry.
in Mikros Gedolos,
Sorry, you just say it really too fast.
yeah, I do.
Like I was
Okay, in
thinking
Mikros Gedolos, anywhere in
All right,
Torah,
got it. Only in
you-
Torah?
Tanakh. In
Tanakh, okay.
You click on the word,
Click on the word.
and then it takes you to the BDB, which is the Briggs or
okay.
Brown Driver Briggs dictionary. Okay, and it'll give you the definition and all the places where it occurs. You could click on Milim Kadumim, which will give you all of the Rishonic dictionaries. So here it's just Menachem Ibn Shaprut and Radak, but sometimes it's like it's Ibn Janach, sometimes it's a bunch of them. Then the Tarshim is the graph where it shows you all of the places where it occurs in Tanakh. And you could click on particular forms. So let's say I clicked on Bereshis, but you could go Bereshis, Bereshisa, Umereshis, and then the concordancia is the traditional concordance where it just goes through all the instances in the psukim.
Got it.
Yeah, and you can also flip from shoresh to tsura, like particular forms versus just the root. You could do an advanced mode for the concordance, and yeah, so there's just a lot of stuff. But all you got to do is just one click away. The other dictionary that people aren't aware of, by the way, which is only available on Sefaria, is the Klein dictionary. So the Klein dictionary has rabbinic Hebrew, and the way you go there is Klein dictionary. And then let's take the word, what's a weird word in our pasuk? Merim, let's say. Merim. And it'll give you the different definitions. In some ways, it's better than the BDB because the BDB is only Tanakh Hebrew. But the BDB is way more extensive. This one is also rabbinic Hebrew and modern Hebrew, I think, but it's yeah. So there's also.
Have you ever thought about maybe like putting all the resources on like one doc?
Yeah, people have done that before, and what I really want to do, and I keep saying this, I've never asked for Pesach about it. I want to give, and because I want to give a Sunday shiur of just all of the resources that are available for Torah research that people don't know about, because I feel like everyone knows some stuff, but I feel like I know a bunch of stuff, and I just don't, and the reason why I want to give it as a Sunday shiur is I feel like if I just put out a video like that, no one's going to listen to it. But if it's something that the community is already coming to, then more people will want to see it.
Did
But
you ask me?
I haven't asked him, no, but yeah.
Like, gonna be this year Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I've got one more Sunday shiur slot.